Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Last Hit. We are on a number of episode 5, I think. I actually don't know what episode we're on. It's all kind of blurred together at this point. We're getting through. We're going into week 8 of the LPL, and that's the most important thing. I'm Munchables. I'm joined by Lyric, just like last week. Dagda is currently mid-travel to China, and there's all kinds of shenanigans, so he's going to be missing an episode. Instead, we're going to be joined by Alex over there, Mr. Mad Magical, who's joined us for the LPL this week. First off, mate, welcome to the LPL. Do you want to give yourself a little kind of self-intro for anyone missed the games this week or doesn't know who you are? Give us a little intro.
Hello, I'm Magical. I'm play-by-play shoutcaster. Just joined this week. I like to yell at video games. From what I've been told, I'm decent at it. You know, I wouldn't go like good, I wouldn't go bad. I'm like above average.
Well, I enjoyed your casting. We've been casting together a little bit. I've been stepping into the color role. Lyric is getting green with envy of my sheer 5-head knowledge that I'm dropping during the games.
Hey, even during our cast together, you're stepping into the color role where you're like, hey, this Callista interaction works like this, this, and this. And I'm like, oh thanks, Munch.
Oh, you didn't know about the red interaction? Well,
I did know, but you just explain it so eloquently.
It's so OP. It's so OP. Anyway, enough about Callista. Welcome to the show, guys. Once again, welcome to the LPL, Alex, and Maisel as well, if you're listening. But let's get into the podcast. And back by popular demand, just like it is every episode, everyone's favorite segment. I get thousands of DMs every single day asking when the next episode of Guess the Player is going to be coming. Well, it's here. It's finally here. We're going to do Guess the Player. So I've got 3 players. Alex, since you've not played the game before, I'll quickly explain the rules. I'm going to give you some clues. You have to try and get a stab in the dark at which player I'm talking about after each clue. If you guess it on the first clue, you get 3 points, 2 points for the second clue, 1 point for the third clue. There'll be 3 different players, and whoever has the most points at the end wins bragging rights, I guess. So with that,
I didn't win anything last week. I didn't win anything.
You got bragging rights though. You can quick brag about it. This is your chance, man.
Give him like
I'm
virtual high five.
I'm undefeated at Guess the Player. You stand no chance, Alex. And any fans out there, you stand even less of a chance. So.
I
2-0.
Even I got some points last week, and I'm the host. Which I don't even remember how I got points.
You did better than Dagda.
Yeah.
See, what am I being brought into? I feel like I'm being just torched alive here to just start off the podcast. Like, here you go, you're about to lose.
That's what Lyric does.
Torched alive is a good metaphor here, because they do say that LPL is the trial by fire for play-by-plays. So maybe this is all apt and working together. Let's jump into this one though. So first player. The first clue I'm going to give you guys, and this is a very vague clue, is this player is an ex-pro that has turned streamer. And obviously, all of these players will be LPL adjacent.
Is there like a buzzer?
No, you
push?
each get a guess now before the second clue, and if you get it right, then good job. So
take it away, Alex.
I'll let Lyric go. Oh, yeah, I was going to let the undefeated champion go first. I feel like that's only fair.
Okay, well, a few players come to mind, but I don't know why he comes to mind first. I'm going to guess Ning.
Okay, we've got Ning. Over to you, Alex.
Okay. And let's say the one that I really know is Uzi, so I'd go with Uzi.
Hey, we already have a 3-point answer. Alex gets it right with Uzi. Ooh, ding, 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 ding. We could do with some sound effects.
Disrespecting Ning's name, dude. Disrespecting Ning's name.
I didn't know that he turned streamer. That's the only thing. It's like, you say X-Pro, I'd be like, okay, but I didn't realize he turned streamer.
He always trash talks IG.
I knew Uzi did.
It's quite nice.
Just like Uzi does with RNG, so there we go. It's a match made in heaven. Perfect guesses. All right, player number 2 then. So this player doubles up as both a pro player and a professional model. So, Lyric, you guessed first last time, so Alex, you have to go first on this. This is kind of a hard clue, actually, especially if you haven't been doing LPL for a while, because this is all kind of Weibo stuff.
Yeah, I was about to say, this one
there are a
is
few
difficult
players
one.
that do modeling.
I was
going to
say, I know it's one of 3.
I want to say Dylan B, just because I love Dylan B. But Jackie Love's the name sticking in my mind, and I'm torn between
Okay,
the
well,
two
you gotta
of
pick
them.
one. You gotta go with one. Okay, we
Dylan
got
B.
Dylan B. Over to you, Lyric.
You know, I think Jackie Love would have been a much better guess for him. He's one of my 3, but I'm not going to go Jackie Love because Jackie Love seems like way too much of an obvious answer. I'm going to go for the niche answer that, no one's going to know except us and say Mitsuki from DMO last year.
And you know,
Because he is a model.
yeah, he is. He is now a model. You're wrong on that one, Lyric, I'm afraid. But I appreciate that. I thought about doing Mitsuki, but I thought that was a bit too mean for Alex to put Mitsuki as the answer. Because he probably has never heard of Mitsuki. Because let's be honest, he wasn't exactly the most famous player even in the LPL. You're both wrong. So, over to clue number 2.
Okay.
Known as one of the most aggressive players in the LPL. This is the same player as the modeling career. So this should make it a little bit more obvious.
Lyric should go first on this one because it will give me
Munch,
ideas.
can we both answer the same player?
Yes. Yeah.
I was going to say, because I'm just going to go with Jackie Love.
Yeah,
'cause I was
it
gonna say
is Jackie
Jackie
Love.
Love.
Like I feel like that second clue was gonna give it away. And then the third clue was like the absolute if you don't get this one, then you've never watched the LPL. Won the world championship in
3
his
players-
first year of LPL.
You know what's
The 3 players in my mind were Mitsuki, Karsa, and Jackie Love. I mean, Karsa's just as beautiful,
what's
and he also does all those magazines.
I mean there's
But I'm mad now. I was
Yeah.
right at the beginning. I should have
You
gone
should
with
have.
Jackie
I
Love.
agree.
Damn it.
There are quite a few players though that have been doing modeling stuff. Like when you look on Weibo, most of the top teams have a bunch of random model shoots that even if they aren't going by themselves, they're doing it with a team. So I feel like they all kind of qualify. But regardless, we're gonna go to player 3. Now this one is gonna be way harder for Alex. So you both got Jackie Love on the second one, but Alex got 3 points on Uzi. So Alex is on 5. Jordan, you're on 2. So for this one, Jordan, you're going to need to pull out all the stops and try and get it on the first clue. Alex, I'm curious if you'll be able to get this one. If you can, though, big respect.
I doubt it.
So, the first clue is this player was one of the only LPL players to play Maokai Jungle in 2020.
You know what?
Phone. Where's my phone?
I'm not even gonna answer because I already know who it is. I already know who it is.
Aww.
So I want to give Alex a chance to go through these clues.
Okay.
And then at the end, if he doesn't answer it, I'm gonna swoop in and take these points.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm gonna assume that he knows. Like I'm just gonna go with that. Like yeah, Jordan already knows. I've
Okay.
lost that. I'm trying to get at least
it's
one
a
point
jungler.
here. is
You know
my
it's a
hope.
jungler. And we know it's someone
Yes.
that's played
So I have the
Maokai in
list in my head.
2020. Which probably doesn't help you that
There
much.
was one.
'cause it was-
There was one team that picked Maokai all the time
no
for multiple
reason.
roles,
For no
and
reason.
it breaks my heart.
Okay, well, I'm just going to move on to the second clue for you. Because I have a feeling that because a lot of these games were really unimportant games as well. So even if you're like a peripheral LPL fan, you probably maybe don't know that one. So clue number 2 is an even better, maybe even more obscure clue. This guy
Oh god.
is a Chinese youth ping pong champion.
Oh God.
Honestly, these clues are just like, let's see how obscure we can get with a random player. And see how much of this
I thought it was
is-
supposed to get easier with
The
each
third one should
This
be
just-
easy. The third one should be easy. Okay, right. Well,
Because I can't even think of who to guess. I'm just trying to think of junglers at this point.
So this
I'm
one
like,
for me, I just actually set this up so that I could tell everyone listening that this player used to be a Chinese youth ping pong champion because I think it's one of the best random facts in the whole LPL. The third clue is this guy is like a comet. So think of LPL junglers.
oh no, that gives it
Yeah,
away
that's why it's
right
clue
away.
3.
That one gives it away. That
Correct.
It's meteor.
Yep.
Ding 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 ding.
That's like that was like immediate. I'm like, okay.
Dude, that one was too easy for me.
Yeah.
That one was way too easy.
I knew that one would be too easy. I just wanted a good excuse to tell people that me used to be a youth ping pong champion because I just think that's amazing.
if you had gone with, instead of the Maokai example, something like I think he's only ever played one game of Lee Sin in his career. I think that would have made it way harder for me.
Yeah,
because I think he has only ever played one game of Lee Sin, or it's like one to three. It's almost
the
none.
key thing is that he doesn't really play it, right?
see.
Like, that's like the key
Yeah.
takeaway. But either way, it is Meteor. So Alex gets 1 point for that one. Jordan abstained with answering. Abstained from answering. But I think you still get the 3 points since you definitely knew the answer. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So
He
ultimately,
definitely did. Let's just say that he and I
Well,
tied. Let's say we
hang on,
tied
hang on
because
now,
that
hang
doesn't
on
give
now.
me point.
You got 1 point on that third one, which means you finished the round on 6 points. Jordan only got 5 points for himself. He should have took the points while he had them.
I took the memes. I guessed Mitsuki, and I didn't want the free win in the third question. It's
Respectable. But his undefeated streak of one episode is now destroyed. Let's move on. Let's actually get into the LPL podcast and actually start talking about the LPL. So we'll jump into everyone's second favorite segment, and that's failures and faves. We're going to look through the standings a little bit, and we're each going to pick our failures and our faves from not just this week of LPL. We'll try and focus on this week of the LPL, but if you want to go larger than that, you can. So, Alex, since it's your first episode on, we'll start with you. We'll give you the floor. Do you want to pick a team? And we'll start with the failure, and then we'll go into the fave. We'll start negative, and then we'll go into positivity here.
So
So who's your failure
I
here?
teased both of them before this that I had a controversial one going into this. And my failure is going to be FPX. I feel like, especially since the break, they have not been performing to the caliber they should be. And honestly, just you look at they've won against JDG, which is great, but they lost against WE immediately from getting back in. They lost to RNG. They lost to Rare Adam. They right now are 1-3 since the break. It's not a good streak, especially since two of the teams that they've lost to are teams that they're technically tied with in the standings. And if you're trying to say, hey, we're going to be a top team, we're aiming to win this split, that is a poor showing immediately from having the Chinese New Year break that was supposed to give them a little bit of free time to kind of gather their thoughts and what they wanted to be able to bring. Plus, while I like how they play, they've been playing Karthus and, just been able to bring in Peishuan. It's just not necessarily been what we'd want to see out. And of course, you can make the argument, Peishuan, new player being brought in. It's a bit unfortunate for them. They still haven't been able to find that identity. But I don't know if that's really the issue for them. Everything else.
I think the weird thing, the weird thing about that though is that they have a very clear identity. It just kind of sucks. It's the problem. Like it's just nothing like the meta, and it's like the Nocturne mid, the Karthus jungle. I love it. It's really fun to watch, but it's just not that good right now. Like I mean, Lyric, you're gonna know more about this one than me, but. I don't know. I feel like I watch the games and I'm excited. I love casting them. I love watching them. But I do feel like they were playing meta a few weeks ago. What happened?
I remember.
Why can't you play meta anymore?
I remember me and you had this conversation either in a rehearsal or during a break where I said, I absolutely love this. Like, I love that FPX are going back to what was strong. Again, like 2019 summer. When they were at their height of their dominance. It's super fun to watch. Problem is, it just feels too hard to get off the ground running right now and snowball as hard as you need when you're playing like Rumble mid with Lucian bot or, Nocturne with that full dive comp, which once again didn't have any sort of like hyper carry or scaling carry to bridge them in the late game when it feels like there's so many picks in the meta right now that have an easy time of getting through laning phase. Gragas, Xayah, you can pick Sion in the top lane. We've seen Ornns come out, Renekton's, and you're just not going to be able to get off like those same four-man tower dives or really accelerate the game unless the enemy team is bad. And sadly for FPX, they played a bunch of top and middle tier teams since breaks come back.
Yeah, that's one thing in their defense as well is they have had a pretty rough schedule. Like WE, RNG, JDG, RA is not the easiest schedule ever. But I do agree with your sentiment that it's kind of disappointing the results that they've been having, considering, like, oh god, here's the problem with this whole conversation. Is the FPX that we all fell in love with this year is the FPX with Bo. And that all set on fire and exploded. So now we're left in this weird limbo where we're like, I want to love FPX. It's like that X that you keep going back to, right? Where You go into one of the series, they're against the top team, you're like, maybe it can work this time. Maybe we can make this work. And then it all falls apart. And they keep on first picking Karthus. And you're like, okay, it's a disaster. And then you go into the next day, and it's another FPX series. You're like, maybe we can make it work. It's just, I don't know. It's heartbreaking to see that it's not working out. But I will say, I think that by playoffs, this could be a good team.
That's what I'm hoping. I'm really hoping that they're going to be able to kind of get their stuff together, be able to figure out how they want to be able to play. And the thing is, it's like, I feel like they should, in theory, be the same team. Even Peijuan's fitting well with the team. When you watch how they play, it just seems that everyone else isn't playing to that same caliber. That's my biggest problem, is that it's not even Peijuan, it's everyone else on FPX that are falling short of the expectations we normally have for them. So I do hope that they kind of get back to where they're supposed to be, where everyone expects FPX to be. So playoffs, they're out there swinging and they're playing crazy things like Karthus. They're making that meta because they just do it so well.
All right, Lyric, over to you for your failure then. Let's stick on the negativity here. We'll go for the 2 failures first, and then we'll go into some favorites.
So you specifically told me and told us to be creative with this, if we can. And I couldn't think of a team negative where like it wasn't too obvious, right? Like one of the bottom teams or something like that. But I have a great negative that I genuinely believe. The whole middle table of the LPL is a massive disappointment, is a massive failure, in my opinion. When you look at 2020 summer, I looked through like our top 7, our top 8, and I'm like, man, you send any of these teams to Worlds, and our 3rd seed will do about what LGD did. They'll get 3-3 in group stage. Maybe they can make it to quarters possibly, but they're not going to go like 1 win or 0-6 like certain other teams, right? But when I look at the standings right now, it's like, okay, RNG, EDG are good teams. I think Top Esports are a good team. Beyond that, it's like, I think WE are solid. They are like, they're a team that I think should fulfill what a 3rd seed at Worlds would do. So that means every team under those 4, I honestly think would get dumpstered by a lot of the other regions. I think JDG don't look good. V5 are a complete dumpster fire, which me saying that absolutely means something. Like Suning are hit or miss. I'm still not a big fan of how they're playing. They're once again relying a lot on individual skill coming out from Bin. Like you can just run through the teams and it feels like there's a massive problem with all of them in the middle of the table. But it is only spring, so I will like give a bit of a caveat, but it's still a bit disappointing.
I just want to mention both Top Esports and IG are in the middle of the table. So I have a feeling you're going to go back on some of the stuff that you're talking about later on in the episode, but we'll see. We'll see. I do agree with you, though, fundamentally. Like, especially, I think the big part of this topic is when you looked at the rosters at the start of this split, it was like, holy crap, LPL is so stacked. Like, the top 12 teams have insane talent on the rosters. And it doesn't feel like it's down to like necessarily mechanical play across the league. I feel like we actually have some insane players across the board in terms of mechanics, but it feels like a lot of the team play and a lot of the basic like fundamental macro and things like this, teams are just not like assessing their win conditions correctly and not playing the game correctly.
I feel like 2 of the teams for the best example for this is obviously one JDG, just with how much they've fallen off when they still have top like players that should be top players like Lumao, Kanavi. And then the other example I think is also V5, where we look at their core 3, we're like, hey, jungle mid support, this might actually be the best core in the league. And now they're sitting at 12th. It's so strange.
See,
it's kind of insane. And well, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, IG are the team that kind of sticks out for me with the middle of the pack, where it's like, you look at how they play, and it's not like the IG that everyone would think, where you're like, oh, they still have the Shine, they still have Rookie. Those aren't like the best performing players on that team, in my opinion. Puff has been doing really well since the break. Sean is doing really well in the jungle, but those are the players that it's like where you're keeping your eyes on the Shy. It feels like he's just really not caring the split that much. He's kind of just like, whatever, I'm just here at the moment.
I will say, I feel like it's relative, right? Because relative to what I think international fans would think of, like comparing it to 2018, definitely not. But compared to 2020, and I even think relative to the rest of the league, I would probably have him rated as the 5th or 6th best top laner right now. He's definitely improved since last year, where he was losing IG almost every series, or at least tied with Puff, Southwind, and Ning. Like, those four were just
80 cannon, baby.
yeah, it wasn't good. The rapid fire cannon, Munchables.
Oh god, it hurts my brain. I just love that picture of the Shy like grinning evilly. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off your rant about IG, but I do feel like we're gonna rant about IG
We
in
will,
a bit.
we will.
So I kind of want to segue away from this one. I want to save some of the juicy stuff for later in the episode because inevitably, IG are inevitable, you know. So let's move away from the negative then. Let's move into the positive. Who are your guys' favorites moving forward in this split right now? And we'll go to you first again, Alex. I'll let Lyric go second, just in case you have the same answer. I feel like Lyric has a giant brain filled with juicy knowledge.
He's got the big brain.
So
over there.
I'll throw him in the hot water and he can pick a random team if he needs to.
See, I'll go with Rare Adam because 7 series win streak. Hell yeah, let's go. I am all here for it. But
I like it.
they're also a team that I wouldn't have pegged as being like up here towards the top 4 at the beginning of the split. I would have been like, all right, you know, maybe they get to playoffs, but they're more like middle of the pack. They'd be all right. But they keep impressing me. I watch them and how they're playing, and honestly, it's good stuff. They continue to win. They were able to beat FPX, and the way they beat FPX is my favorite too, by taking Karthus away. They're just like, sure, we can play that too. It makes me happy to see teams that can go up against FPX who like to play kind of strange things and say, you know, what if we did that instead, and also won with it. So it makes me curious to see if they're going to be able to maintain this going throughout the rest of the split, but right now they're my big winners.
I want to jump in on this before Lyric does because I feel like Lyric is
I'm not jumping in on this now. We have a segment later where I can jump in on this. I am not jumping in on this now. I'm not doing it. Take it away, Munchables.
Okay. I will say they've got a pretty rough schedule. I don't want to overham that and go into that particularly, but just if you guys are interested at home, check out Rare Atom's schedule. They got some big teams coming up. But I will say as well, coming into this year, in our Babies of the Boys episode, we did power rankings. I actually put them 4th in the league, I'm pretty sure.
That's big.
And right now they're in 4th in the league. And every single series, I expect their win streak to end and reality to come crashing down around me. And every single series, they managed to maintain the win streak. And FBX, in my mind, that was the series where it was like, okay, the nonsense ends now. The 6 series win streak. Oh my goodness, that was a really hard sentence. This is where the win streak ends, right? This is where they get upset. FPX is the top team, blah, blah, blah. And they just pulled it out of the bag. And it was such a weird series as well. In fact, we're going to talk about that series in a little bit. I feel like every topic I'm like, we're coming back to this.
Spoilers.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a really interesting team. And currently, iBoy isn't hardcore running it. And I feel like he's the kind of player that will either hardcore carry or hardcore run it. So right now, it's on the good side of that. So we just enjoy the ride while it's there.
Also, I did count it. Technically, with the break, it is a 6-week win streak too. Technically.
Oh, nice. So I was technically correct in my misspeak, but here we go. Over to you, Lyric. Then, what's your favorite coming into weekend?
So I'm going to go with a player, and I'm going to go with Karsa, because even though I think Top Esports overall could be an easy team to do as a favorite, in the last episode, me and you already said that they're winning LPL, so I want to focus more specifically on Karsa, because I feel like we haven't been giving Karsa a lot of love on the broadcast, and fans pretty much consistently overlook him, which makes sense for his style, right? Because he is like the true enabler. He is not playing to be the carry jungler at all. It's all about setting up his lanes and looking for like early ganks, which makes his jungle paths always a bit wonky as well. But when you have this stacked of a roster, it still makes sense, and he's still able to go back to those carry performances. When he came into the league and started his career in Season 5, I think it was. I was only an LMS viewer back then. His signature picks were Nidalee and Rengar. He pulled up the Nidalee against OMG. Amazing performance, hitting spear after spear. Then he faced IG, and he keeps going back to this Hecarim pick where he's consistently finding these 4- and 5-man fears on it. Again, he's always where he needs to be. And most impressively in that series, I just love the way that he always led the charge to control vision, which really choked IG out of that game. So Karsa doing well recently, and I feel like he probably has the best resume of any jungler ever. Maybe the only one in contention with him, right, is Jankos, but Karsa, MSI champion, now top 4 Worlds, has been at Worlds like what, 5, 6 other times beyond
17
that.
times,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
He's pretty much there every year. And yeah, this guy's just an absolute legend.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think as well on the point of the Hecarim pick there, he's one of the only junglers in the LPL that's been successful on this Hecarim pick. The pick has like a 20% win rate or something in the LPL, but he specifically manages to make it look incredibly good and kind of is able to showcase why some more teams are picking it up and why it has been a reasonable pick in other regions. And just, I don't know, so some teams just don't seem to be able to use this pick at all. Yeah, I that's a good favorite though. I definitely think that he's a player that I don't even think he's an underrated player. I just think he's an underconversed player,
Yes.
if that makes sense. Like people never talk about Karsa. I think everyone accepts that Karsa's just really great, but it's like as you say, it's kind of this quiet, supportive style. So no one ever really talks about it because he's never getting the quadruple.
And it's like it's like you just said, everyone knows he's great anyway. Like it seems like no one thinks Karsa's bad, so there's no reason to point out, hey, Karsa's good because no one disagrees with you.
Like,
it's like saying water's wet.
Yeah, Karsa's one of my favorite players, of all time. I love this player, and just like you were talking about, Lyric, it's how many times he's been to Worlds, how many times has he been to international events, and it's the thing that's crazy to me is it's never really with just one style. He doesn't have to just play that supportive style. He can play whatever is meta for the jungle at that time and do well at it. Obviously, by making it to Worlds every time since 2015. He's made it to Worlds every single
year.
time since then.
And that's the start of his professional career. I mean, 2014, he was playing in the league under the LMS. Actually, they were still the GPL back then, so it was like the third-tier league in his region. 2015 was his first year as a pro. Been to Worlds every year since he started.
It's not a bad track record, is it? Like, it's give him a thumbs up on that one. All right, so we'll move the conversation on a little bit here, and I just want to put one last note on in terms of the standings before we kind of move on completely, or in fact, 2 notes. Okay. The first one is LNG. It's becoming a bit of a sad story for them now, down in 9th place. It's still possible, and I think they'll still make playoffs, but that team is feeling like it's falling apart a little bit. But also, the other note is, I said this on broadcast as well, top esports right now are 7-3. Which means that they are 1 win away from being tied with WE in 3rd place. They have played 1 less game than WE. Top esports are very rapidly climbing that table. So all you top esports doubters out there, you need to be sleeping with one eye open. Let's just word it like that. Okay, let's move on from the standings though. And let's react a little bit to week 7, because a couple of times now we've alluded to, we'll come back to this later in the episode. And, well, we're later in the episode now. I want to talk about 3 of these absolutely insane series that we got to see this week. We saw RA versus FPX, we saw EDG versus RNG, and we saw Top Esports versus IG, which 2 of them obviously are kind of like classic matchups, right? You got EDG RNG, which is 2 old school legends, and then Top Esports and IG, which me and Lyric on broadcast dubbed as the modern classic, right? Since Jackie Love joined Top Esports, kind of going against his old team, it feels like that is a rivalry now. But RA versus FPX is the one I want to start with, because I think that one kind of just came out of the blue. I don't think anyone was expecting that to be this insane 3-game series that had its own entire meta that nobody else plays. Like, suddenly, Udyr and Olaf are just forgotten. And Karthus Jungle is the kid. Like, where did this come from? What on earth happened? I was just watching in glee for this entire series, having no idea what was. It felt like I was watching a totally different year of League of Legends.
Yeah, this one was a weird one, and I'll be honest, it's going to be hard for me to preface the series because I was casting the series. We didn't actually get to cast Game 1, and I've not gone back and watched Game 1. So, the series started to me with Game 2, and Game 2 is when FPX started drafting. I mean, they were already drafting weird, right? You already mentioned the Karthus, and I guess I'll start with in regards to that. I feel like that's just a comfort pick to Beichuan. You and Rob highlighted the fact that, hey, he's all about AP junglers, the king of Echo. And when you look at Lo Yen historically, he is phenomenal on these farming champions like Karthus. It's one of his most played in solo queue. So I feel like it's one of those where, hey, the enemy jungler, this is his bread and butter comfort pick. It's my bread and butter comfort pick. I'm going to take it away. But I think moving on, honestly, RA should have 2-0'd the series in my mind. We got into Game 2. FPX picked this, really cool, but also really weird and bad, Wombo combo composition with Irelia, Nocturne, Galio support. It's all about like snowballing, jumping on your backline, attacking side lanes, and they fall behind early. I think Nuggery gave over 2 kills, and RA have this perfect scaling composition. They can just chill. They can just play front to back. Doinby's now 0-2. If he dies in, he should die. Somehow, though, Doinby jumps in. He spell shields Fofo's Emperor's Divide, and Nuggery comes in off a flank. RA scatters 2 different sides, and FPX just killed them all. And it blew my mind that FPX were able to do that and then snowball that into a win.
I will say, didn't Karthus have a 100% win rate as well in that series?
Yes.
Like that game too, I'm pretty sure was the game that FPX had the Karthus. Yes. And it was like this, I mean, wombo combo is one way to say it, but also like this kind of global composition where Doomby can dive in on Nocturne, Galio can then follow in with the massive power slam in, and then you got Karthus just wherever he is on the map at the time, just hits the outplay button and one-shots everyone. So it was, if not good, then at least very entertaining as a composition. And look, if we go on pure results-based analysis, it was the best composition they could have run because they got the dub.
Hey,
that's all that matters.
I'm saying this. Karthus is gonna be the meta coming up soon. Karthus jungle is gonna be back, baby. And you saw in that game 3, what did he die 11 times yet still won? That's the thing about Karthus. Doesn't matter how many times he dies. He can just run at the enemy, die immediately, has unlimited mana, and as long as he can push R, that's all that matters.
I don't think Karthus will become meta, but I actually think Karthus has a place in the meta, surprisingly. So I'm kind of agreeing with you. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of junglers jump on this hype train. Very fast, clear, very easy to combo with AD soul laners, which we're already seeing. It is a scaling meta. My problem is, we saw it attempted in this game 1 for the 10 minutes of it I got to cast, where it's like, hey, the enemy picks a Kindred into it, they have prio lanes, let's just invade it and make sure it can't play the game. But, you know, apparently it failed in that game, but I still think it should be very easy to shut Karthus jungle down. So even if he does reappear for whatever reason, I feel like teams will quickly learn kind of how to shut it down, and then it'll just go back to being what it, I guess, is now, where Beichuan will play it, and then teams that go up against FPX are like, hey, I play that champion too. Mine.
I think that there's a key thing in that first game of the series that I want to mention as well, which was because me and Mad cast the VOD of that for the YouTube channel. So if you missed that first game of the series, still really sick game. I would recommend going and watching it. We had some fun with the fact that we already knew the result, and there were some memes. But the key thing in that game is Nuggery gets caught out at level 1, and it means that I think it was Nuggery getting caught out. Somebody gets caught out at level 1 on FPX, and it leads to this like chain reaction of events where like flashes are burnt across the board on FPX's side, and I think Doomby had to go to lane with like no health and mana or something like this. And basically, it ended up in this horrible situation where for the first like 5 minutes of the game, even with good matchups, FPX ended up losing those lanes across the board. Or the other way around. Whoever had the Kindred ends up losing the lanes across the board.
Yeah, it's FPX.
And Leyen was able to invade too and kill Nuggery solo, which was wild.
Yeah. So it's like it was like this awful turn of events. I don't remember exactly how it all happened, but it was like one thing led to another, which led to another, which led to another. So the first like 5 to 10 minutes of the game, Kindred can just do nothing, and it is like the worst possible champion to play when you have just a losing map state. So it was kind of disastrous.
You guys make this game sound so shocking. I actually am gonna go back and rewatch it right after this. How does this happen, man? How does this happen?
It was.
I don't think Kindred was able to. I think there was only one stack for Kindred at like 15 or 20 minutes. It was like,
it was brutal.
That's how far behind Peichuan was in that game. And like
the really hilarious thing.
It was
the really hilarious thing was that there was this, while they're really far behind, they then win a team fight, start to lead, and then lose the next team fight, and it all flips over again. I don't want to spoil it too much. Go watch the VOD. It's a good time. Yeah, that series, if you missed it, I would watch all 3 games. It was hilarious. Karthus became the premier pick in the series. Nocturne mid happened. Like, it's just a good time. Let's move on to the second series in our 3 highlighted ones, though. EDG versus RNG. This one felt like, out of all of the series we've had in the split so far, this felt like a very serious series, right? Where we have a lot of fun on the LPL broadcast. I think it's fair to say that we sometimes don't even give an appropriate amount of reverence to some of the top teams. We kind of like to meme them up a little bit. But EDG versus RNG, I think, was one of the. It felt like a playoff series, right? It felt like these are the two top teams. This is deciding who the best team in the LPL is. And I feel like we got a good showing from EDG as well, even though they ended up losing in the end. Like, I feel like EDG showed that they are back a little bit because they had a couple of rough series leading into this one. EDG actually looked pretty decent in this series, and we had a really high quality best of 3 between the two teams.
But Xiaohu is the best top laner. I'm just gonna say that right now.
Spicy opinion.
That is a spicy take. I will say I have him in my top 5 for sure. I have him in my top 5 right now. I don't know if I'd put him at number 1.
I mean, it is recency bias after that series, but he did damn good in
He
that
did have
series.
a great series.
He's super
really
good,
great
but
series.
the one thing, and I can actually turn this into how I'd break down the series overall, is that I think RNG are the way more flexible team, and also I'd say the smarter team in the way they're able to play out the map. EDG are the better team if it's like standard. We're both playing these more, let's say neutral team fighting compositions that want to go late, because the one game they won was where it was like, hey, RNG have Zyracon in the bot lane, they have a Gragas top, and they have an Azir mid. So you actually don't have too much playmaking potential early. But where RNG shines is when they're able to do shenanigans with these flex picks and just completely give everything to Xiaohu. So Xiaohu's definitely one of the best mid laners in the top laners, in the LPL right now. But he's also getting absolutely everything from the team. I know, Joe. I just can't get out of my mind. He's still a mid laner. He solo killed Scout in this series. Like,
He did.
I know. Oh god. Yeah, there was a screenshot I saw on Twitter where EDG lane swapped to get good lane matchups. I think it was game 1, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong.
It was
on that
game
one.
1.
And lane swapped to get good lane matchups, and it was like Xiaohu versus Scout at the top lane. We're back. It's old school LPL again. It's the mid lane matchup once more. Oh dear. Yeah, it was definitely I mean, to be fair to Xiaohu, because I think a lot of people still see him as a mid laner that's kind of, or at least at the start of the split, a lot of people saw him as like, oh, it's just a mid laner while they figure it out and get a top laner. I feel like he is very much becoming a top laner, and I think this is a series where he showed that a bit more, where I mean, like when you look at the drafts, over time he's been picking less and less of these majors and more of actual top lane champions. So I feel like at this point, RNG are fully committed to him as a top laner. I think he's performing exceptionally well, but also it looks good for RNG, and this style of just playing towards Xiaohu is working for them, because especially when you look at their bot lane, like Ming and Gala are totally okay to just play like Xayah, Aphelios, Kai'Sa, just scale up happily in the bottom side every single game. If you let them do that, they're more than happy to do that.
Yeah, and I feel like fans are going very one way or the other, or just even public opinion, caster opinion, where a lot of people like Magical are saying is like Xiaohu's the best, which again I think is a fair opinion. I've heard that opinion a lot actually, and then other people go the opposite way, like Joe's saying. They're like, he's just auto-filled mid laner. He gets a lot of resources, and I'd say, just to kind of get this out, I feel like to where for me Nuggery and Zoom are 1 and 2 in terms of top laners, and then Breathe and Flandre are like 3, 4, and again this is no order between those. You probably have Xiaohu, the Shy, and I'm forgetting one more person. There's one other person in that list where it's like, okay, they're like this third tier of still good top laners, because in LPL, we have so many elite level top laners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most stacked roles. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like, and when you look at how they play around Xiaohu, it's like, it is recency bias to say, oh my god, he's great. Because if you look at that third game, especially on Gnar, that 4-man all was nuts. But the thing is, it's like you're talking about, Lyric, is that they kind of do play around Xiaohu. Think game 1. I mean, hell, just look at the draft for all the games. It was meant to make sure they got the counter matchup for Xiaohu so he'd have an easier time against Flandre top lane. The Tristana flexed where you thought you got the counter, like, Kalista into Tristana bot lane. They're like, haha, no, we're putting Tristana into Gnar. Now Flandre can't play top lane. He's not allowed to play this matchup at all.
It's seriously so scary playing against RNG when they're on blue side, because again, they'll just pick like two champions that could go in like 3 lanes, and then you have last pick, and you just look at it, you're like, man, they actually can't counter pick RNG because you don't know what RNG are going to do, and they have so many options. Like, man, it is so scary to draft against them.
The funniest thing about it as well is that, like, you know, I mentioned that he's playing more top lane champions, and it feels like he's becoming more of a normal top laner, but there's always that caveat to that statement, right? Where it's like, just because he can play top lane champions doesn't mean that he will. And when we come to playoffs, if they're 0-2 down, he's not going to play Gnar. He's not going to play a tank. He's going to play Syndra or Orianna or Tristana or some pick that he can pop off. And yeah, exactly. Cassiopeia. Like, counter these tanks, counter things that are inactive in the lane, and just pop off in the top side. So you know that, like, the flexibility there is really terrifying. And I do want to hit the other side of this matchup as well and talk a little about EDG, because I think EDG, and especially Viper, they seem to struggle a bit when they couldn't focus on the bottom side of the map so much. Like, it feels like if Viper's not managing to get ahead, it feels a lot harder for EDG to find the wins for themselves. Would you say that's a fair statement to make, or would you categorize them differently than that?
I feel like when I look at EDG, at least in this series, right, we did see their bot lane win every single matchup. All 3 games, their bot lane was ahead, which, to be fair, 2 of the games, they were also playing the Kalista. But hey, they're one of the teams that actually make the Kalista look like a good pick into Tristana, because let's be honest, in most series, it does not. And the other one they played, I think, Aphelios Thresh.
Looking at you, IG.
But it's like, and another conversation me and you had the other day, Munch, and you were citing Clement saying this, it's like, okay, he got the 20 CS lead, maybe they get a plate or 2, but RNG are just snowballing so much harder on the opposite side of the map. And I don't think EDG are used to playing against teams that do that, because realistically, when we even think about teams that can do it, the only ones that come to my mind is like IG with the Shy, and they don't even put that many resources into him every game. It's usually about like vision and stuff. It's not about ganks. And then top esports with 369 sometimes. So I feel like EDG are in a very good place where they don't have to worry about this type of situation where they're going to get out cross-mapped, and it's given them a lot of breathing room.
Though I'm a little worried about... I just want to say this really quickly, just because it's a good point. I'm a little worried about EDG going forward on to the next patches, because looking at how they tend to play, I'm really just curious on how they're going to play with JJ on trying to take him out of more of that farming kind of role and being able to have him be far more impactful. Because while Flandre, Scout, Mako, Viper, those are the ones who tend to be the proactive members, the ones trying to get... I think Game 3, where it was Flandre to make the first gank of the game where he went mid lane to get the kill. It's other players. JJ is usually in the role to be able to farm out, control objectives. How do they change when junglers now put in that position and with the jungle XP changes to actually have to be more involved?
You know, the best thing about this is, and again, we'll preface it, right? I mean, obviously, Magical, you were casting a bunch of other stuff, NA, EU Masters, all this stuff. And even Munch used to be casting a bunch of other esports titles. Both of you newer to the LPL. I remember the first game of JJ I watched in 2019 spring or something like that. He was playing Lee Sin, queued into the enemy red buff. His Q missed. So he flashed over the wall and E'd and still found the solo kill. This guy loves playing aggressive, proactive junglers.
Okay. So the conclusion is EDG may end up actually getting better.
Hey, there we go.
All right, well, let's move on. Because, we're talking about shenanigans. We're talking about chaos in what JJ is comfortable doing. Let's talk about some real shenanigans and some real chaos. Top esports versus IG. What a banger. Maybe my favorite series of the entire split so far. And I think that the first topic that we have to hit on here is, like, top esports definitely look a lot cleaner than IG, which is not that controversial of a statement because we're talking about IG here. They've never really been the cleanest team. But the biggest difference in this series was bot lane by a country mile. Man, the IG bot lane, I don't know what was going on. The priority on Kalista, but then basically never play around the Kalista seems like just a bizarre combination of factors to me. I don't understand why they were prioritizing this pick so heavily.
I think it's because of comfort. I remember last year when the Shy was going on that streak of playing Kalista so much and it started getting banned against them. So Puff put like 200 games onto it in solo queue, something like that. It was his most played champion, that split by far in solo queue. He only had like a 40% win rate or something, so it wasn't that impressive. But I feel like Puff has invested so much time into this. He probably feels extremely comfortable on the champion, right? And at a base core level, sure, maybe Kalista is supposed to outlane Tristana, or at least that's how it, did work before a lot of these changes coming into Season 11. But IG just aren't a team who put resources in the bot lane in general, especially within the first, 4 minutes of the game. Sometimes Shun will go bot after his first clear, but even then it's more of it's more like you're sightseeing. You're like, hey, I have to go and clear my Krugs or my Gromp anyway. Oh, my bot lane's pushed in. Let's go see if we can make something happen. But it is confusing until you put it in context of oh, it's IG. So are weird drafts that confusing? Not really.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's talk on a larger picture then of this series, because on the positive side for IG, I feel like the bot lane is the negative side for IG. On the positive side, Rookie's back. Rookie looks pretty good this series. He had a few really big plays. Still wasn't able to 1v9 a series like we expect from 2020, but looked a lot better. But also Shun. Shun looked, I nearly swore. I'm not allowed to swear on the broadcast. Shun looked really good this series. Especially his Nidalee, which, we expect his Nidalee to be amazing, right? But against top esports, against Casa, he looked fantastic across the course of the
Well, and that's
series.
what I was saying earlier about IG, where it's not the members you'd expect to be the pop-off members of IG. Rookie, like you said, is back, but Shun was really good. I was really happy to see how he was performing, and honestly, if they can keep playing around him instead, I feel like that's really the ticket to success for IG for the future. That's what they need to start investing in more. How he's going to be able to play around Rookie, less so about bot lane. Well, maybe help out bot lane so they're not hemorrhaging a complete lead, but use them to be able to get these leads earlier on and snowball other lanes.
I think in hindsight, though, I actually don't feel like any of the IG members really performed individually bad. It's sure, Puff and Lucas's laning phase wasn't good, but then even after laning phase, I think Lucas had a solid series, and Puff definitely had moments. And I think the whole top side of the map performed as good as they could within the constraints of the drafts they were given. Because a big problem when I look at game 2 and 3 is you have Syndra plus Kalista. And even though I'm not a big fan of either champion, I think putting both of them together makes this game way too hard. Because whether you have Kalista at least with a Zir or Orianna, or the reverse Syndra with a Felios, at least there's always some kind of insurance policy of okay, I'm the playmaker, but if we're not going to get outscaled, you are going to be our late game damage. You have nothing in this game. If you don't win early game and win early game by a large margin, you can't even look for anything. You don't even have options, because it's not like anyone was just feeding, running it down, or really getting massacred, right? It's not like there was a huge glaring issue. So to me, it's so weird. The weirdest thing about this draft, going back to that first point, Munch, is the fact that IG drafted normal in their last 2 series. They're playing tanks top, Victor's mid, meta junglers, and scaling bot lanes. And I didn't like that look for IG, so I'm actually kind of happier they went back to this. But it feels like they need to find more of a middle ground. They need to find the stable, nice, even line.
Yeah, it was just weird to me the how early in the draft they were picking things like this Kalista when they clearly didn't really want to play around the Kalista when we got into the game. But enough about IG's draft. I want to talk on the positives of top esports as well, because I've still got a couple of topics that we wanted to hit. We're already almost 50 minutes. So let's quickly talk top esports and then we'll move on. Because top esports, and most importantly, 369 back on top once again. 369 has had a rough split. At least his Jace is back on top. His Malphite was, not going to lie, it was dog tier. It was really bad. But his Jace looked amazing. 2 MVPs back to back. Big thumbs up, right? This is surely a huge positive for top esports.
Yeah, I definitely think he bounced back well, because every early game, it really felt like the Shy outdid him, which isn't too surprising, right? In terms of laning phase, the Shy was, in terms of especially the 1v1, the Shy was never really lacking. It was more about when junglers and stuff get involved. So 369 losing lane, it happens. But we saw top esports going back to their bread and butter, invest resources into 369's laning phase, especially when he is, in the form of rolling some more threes. And then in these mid and late game team fights, stepping up massively. So many really good accelerated shock blasts onto enemy carries. And then the thing about top esports that's great and sets them apart from IG is the fact that they do control objectives. They do have good vision control. They rotate around the map. Like they know how to do 1-3-1. They know how to do 1-1-3. Like there's a playbook there. There's a way to move the cogs forward other than I need to kill the enemy champion. And it feels like to me that's why top esports are making their way back up, and why it's some superior people, analysts, casters, whatever you want to call them. They think top esports are gonna win, right, Munchables?
Yeah, I'd say they are superior.
Wait. Before we move on, though, we're still on 11-3 for, I believe, at least one more day. I'm not sure exactly when we moved to 11-5. Well, that means Top Sports, you have one more chance. I need that Gragas ADC to complete the chart for 11-3. Please, you're playing Billy. Give it to me.
I love it.
Isn't 11.3 done? I think.
No, we played 11-3. I believe for the first day of week 8.
I was gonna say, what's funny? I was watching the broadcast while we were doing this because today was V5 versus JDG, and I didn't notice what patch it was. So sorry, fellas.
I believe it was 11-3. That's why I think.
Okay. Well, regardless of what patch is being played today, let's move on with the conversation. And we'll hit up the patch as the final topic, and we'll just quickly hit on what we expect because we're going to be going to 11.5. But first, on the topic of teams in the LPL, let's talk dark horses. I want to go into some of the nitty gritty here and pick up on some of the teams that we think are dark horses to win the very tournament itself. So I think since me and Jordan have already got on record saying we think Top Esports is going to win the tournament, even though they're 7th place, I don't think that they can be counted as the dark horse at this point since they've already been predicted. And I'd say RNG and EDG are probably not allowed to be dark horses either. So outside of those parameters, guys, who are the ones that you're picking as your dark horses? I'll go to you first, Alex.
All right, baby. Vici died for this. Let's go. I believe they've got this.
Dude, that...
All right.
I love the passion. I love the enthusiasm. It reminds me of the segment when we got Kelsey on to sell us TT, but there is no world where I can imagine RA actually winning the split. They don't. I'm not going to go back into the Mojo discussion because we spent like 20 minutes on that last episode.
Dude, this is a team with Mojo.
The thing is,
A lot of it.
I feel like RA are a really good baseline for what a good LPL team needs, like especially in terms of player quality. They aren't lacking in any direction. They're pretty solid when it comes to team fights. They set up for objectives well, but they are a team that don't know how to move the gears of the game forward other than through snowballing through like dragons or barons. Like the very basic things. They think of the game the same way that EDG does in my mind, where it's like, okay, we're playing around Dragon Soul and then we win the game. But in that like 4 or 5 minute time period, they don't actually do anything. They just wait for it, to where a team like EDG still will aggressively look for vision, try and look for picks, get the game going forward, beta Baron. RNG, we know, is super good at playing through side lane pressure. Top esports have a whole slew of shenanigans they're willing to do. RA just don't have that, and I feel like that's something that is really good against teams that have like some fundamental flaws, because you have a tried and true game plan that is always going to succeed. Your fundamentals are there, but there's nothing to beat like more creative teams with more spunk who know how to progress the game. That's my spiel. That's my RA spiel, guys.
But they took down FPX, and that's what makes me think they got enough creativity in the tank that they might be able to.
Karthus.
That's true.
They can confuse enough people and just play random things where they're like, everyone's like, what's going on? That shouldn't be allowed. Who's that being played? And they win just because everyone's so confused that eventually they get those objectives, like you said. They're just getting dragons, getting barons before people even realize what happened.
I do feel like playing devil's advocate to me and supporting your argument as well. The one like area of, I think, mojo, spunk, creativity, moxie, whatever you want to call it, they do have, is their bot lane. Because their bot lane is willing to just play absolutely insane. iBoy will jump in. Hung will be right alongside with him. And that's the way they typically do find a lot of these leads to like snowball games or get teamfight victories, is iBoy is willing to like have that killer instinct to just pop in. And then Fofo was the guy who was like, okay, I'm going to sit back and, I'm going to be the cleanup guy. I'm still going to have a big pop-off moment, but you're the risk, and I'm just going to make sure everything goes smoothly.
I mean, iBoy
Nah,
also
he's the kind
scares
of player
me
that I
too,
like the Callista.
because sometimes iBoy will jump in when like you should not jump in, and that's the only thing that has me
Yeah.
scared about for
Get
Adam.
get me iBoy on Tristana, on Callista, on
Yes.
Samira. Those are the kind of games I want to watch. All right, so over to you then, Lyric. Who is your dark horse going for finals?
2020, I said IG are winning worlds, and in 2021, IG will be my playoff dark horse because, and I remember me and Dagda having this conversation a lot last year, where like, I'm the potential guy. If you have like a high mechanical skill ceiling roster, ooh baby, I am all in on you. So I look at IG and I'm like, I don't care the issues, I don't care what we're looking at right now. I can see what was before, or I can see what's in the future. And okay, maybe for Puff's like skill ceiling is, I think, pretty average, but the other 4 members, guys, I am totally sold on any day IG can just, get out of their beds and be like, guys, let's stop effing around. Let's win this series and let's do it. And I just need them to do that on the days they have their playoff matches.
It's so true. It's so painfully true. I have no retort. Like, here's the thing. The reason I can't argue with you is because I fundamentally agree with the basis of your argument. Because it's the exact same reason that a week ago I was saying, hey, I don't care what the standings say. Top Eight Spurs are going to win the league. They were currently like, I can't remember what the standings were, but yeah. I don't think IG will do it, but I could agree with your
The
mentality.
doubt
I
on
was about to
Alex's
say,
face.
I don't think IG are going to be able to take it. I think that, well, yes, I agree that they have one of the highest skill ceilings of any team, that they just aren't getting that. They're not accelerating it enough yet. They're still waiting to warm up the car, and by the time they actually get the Jeep onto the road, everyone's already going to have been at the beach house having a good old time relaxing because the season's over.
So
Just real quick, to once again be a bit more neutral. Also, in terms of meta, right? It does feel like we're falling out of an IG meta. We're going much more to like the 5v5 team fight, like late game scaling, and as we've seen, IG don't want to do that.
yeah, so I'm going to wrap this conversation up here because we do have to move on. We've got like 3 minutes left, and I want to very quickly hit on the meta before we close the episode out. One last note on IG, though, I will say regional finals. And I think that statement by itself answers a lot of the potential questions in how they had that potential last year. It didn't really work out. Let's talk, though, about my dark horse very quickly. It's Suning, of course. They're going to make it through. They're going to have a late surge. On and Huanfeng looking way better in the laning phase. They're on the 3-win streak. Angels are god in the mid lane. Bin is looking like he's getting back on form. SOFM is the best jungler in the league? No. The world? No. The universe. There's no way that Suning doesn't win the league. I'm not even going to give you guys an opportunity to retort. Let's talk about the fact that we're changing patches. We've got like 2 minutes, so we're going to have a super speedy rundown of what we're expecting, because the jungle XP is being nerfed, so theoretically more aggressive junglers can start to come in when we change to 11.5.
Skarner. There's my whole my analysis of the patch.
I'll be honest.
Nice.
I don't expect too much to change, and I think we can see that from like the other regions going to 11.4. Is that like Hecarim priority has risen for them after 11.3, and then yeah, some teams are picking up a lot of Skarner, but to me the only big change in terms of jungle EXP is especially in the Krug camp in the earlier clears. I think it's gonna feel a bit of a waste of time, and then maybe you can go for like 4 camps, look for a gank, ignore that one, but we're still seeing an LEC, LCS, LCK. It's still about the Lilias. Again, Hecarim's back into prominence. The Nidalees will come out. Udyr is still there despite more nerfs coming his way on 11.5. And the only kind of surprising thing to me moving on from jungle with watching other regions as well is that Seraphine priority went up on 11.4 in these other regions despite Moonstone Renewer actually getting a nerf. Just kind of strange. Just teams randomly deciding, hey, this champ must have been good all along. Let's start playing it more.
I will
Probably
say,
those bans.
I think in LPL specifically, Seraphine kind of sucks. Like most of the Seraphines I've seen in LPL have been
Poppy
pretty
support.
lackluster.
That'll be a thing too.
You're a creative guy.
I feel like you just pick random things and just go like, this is going to be the next best thing. If you do it
Viger
enough times, one of them's going to be correct and you'll look like a god.
That's how it works, baby. That's how you get the big brain. You just throw enough darts at the wall. Eventually, something's gonna hit a bullseye.
I do want to say the one thing I'm interested about 11.5 is the Mira mana changes, where they kind of nerf it for your auto attacks.
Oh, but it's better for abilities,
Yes.
right?
So, and like in the text, they say they're trying to differentiate it from Essence Reaver, but at the same time, like you can just still buy both, and it's even better now. Like if I'm Ezreal or Lucian or someone, I just feel
Chase.
yeah, you just feel great with this. You just
Yeah.
it's very strange. I feel like it is just a straight up buff, and I'm interested to see how it affects our champions once we hit 11.5.
Oh, we'll have to see. We're going to have to round out the episode, though, I'm afraid, chaps. Thank you very much for joining me. Alex, welcome to the LPL. You did a fantastic job. And thank you for joining us on the podcast. And Lyric as well. Thank you for stepping in, because it was kind of a last-minute thing, so I appreciate you jumping in and helping us out. With that, though, we will see you guys in week number 8 of the LPL. Keep on watching. You can listen here. You can listen on Spotify and wherever else. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.